Okay, hello everyone. We're continuing our Shir and Dirshu Bahalacha remotely from my little recording studio over here. So we're holding today on Reish Mem Gimel Amud Aleph, and we're beginning a new Siman. We are starting Siman Shin Ayin Gimel, marching along. Wow, it's hard to believe how much we've done since the beginning of Chelek Daled. We are a nice amount of the way through all of these complicated dinim of Eruvin, and we begin today and hopefully finish today Siman Shin Ayin Gimel. Din Shtei Gzus Terois, the law of two porches, B'Shtei Aliyos, that extend out of two upper stories of buildings, Ubai Sif Echad, and in this Siman there is only one Sif. So the Mechaber says, Shtei Gzus Terois, two porches. Pirush, what are Gzus Terois? Nisarim, boards or planks, boltim bisvas tikras ha'aliyah, that extend from the edge of the ceiling of the upper story. Now that's not exactly precise. In the Lashon of Chazal, we call the floor of the upper story the tikras aliyah, the ceiling of the upper story. It's called the ceiling because the floor of the upper story is the ceiling of the bottom floor, of the lower floor. So we call that floor a tikra. We look at it from the perspective of the downstairs. So we call it the tikras ha'aliyah, the ceiling that forms the floor of the aliyah. So don't get confused. So what is a gzustara? Pirush, nesarim, boards, boltim, that extend bisvas tikras ha'aliyah, from the edge of the floor of the upper story, lirishus harabim, and it extends out to the rishus harabim. So we're talking here about a porch, right? We're calling it a board. So you have a house. Let's say like this. 1 second. Let me get my prop over here. Here's your building, right? And you have a porch that's coming off of the building. We're referring to the porch. It's a platform. It's a board, and it extends from the floor of the second story of the house. It extends out. Okay. Haboltois mishtei aliyos zu kineged zu. And where are these porches, these two porches situated? They're across the street from each other, across the Rishus Harabim. So you've got one building on this side of the Rishus Harabim, one building on this side of the Rishus Harabim, and each one's got a porch sticking out. But there's a gap between the two porches. V'nasan beinehem neser rachav arba. And now what you did was you bridged the gap between the two porches using a board that is 4 tefachim wide. So what you've done now is you've created a bridge. You have a porch on this side of the Rishus Harabim, a porch on this side of the Rishus Harabim, and you took a plank or a board and you made a bridge going over the Rishus Harabim from one porch to the other porch. And that bridge is 4 tefachim thick. We know that 4 tefachim wide. So we know that 4 tefachim is always the minimum size of a Pesach. So you have now created a bridge that's capable of being a Pesach, being a doorway, from one porch of one house on one side of Rishus Harabim to the other porch of the other house on the other side of Rishus Harabim. Says the Mechaber, Harei hu kepesach. This bridge makes a valid doorway from one porch to the other, uma'arvin yachad, and therefore these two houses, and not just these two houses. Let's say this house on one side of Rishus Harabim opens up onto one chutzner. This house on the other side of Rishus Harabim opens up to another chutzner. Because of these porches and the bridge that goes from one porch to the other porch, now these two houses could make one joint combined erev, and that is going to make everybody it's going to be one happy chutzner, and you could take a keli sheshavas babayis on this side of the Rishus Harabim, you could take it to the porch, take it over the bridge, take it to through the aliyah, and bring it into the house or into the chutzner on the other side of Rishus Harabim, because they have a doorway, one to the other, and now they could join into one combined erev. Let's stop in the Mechaber over here for a moment, and let's dive down into the Mishnah Berurah. Says the Mishnah Berurah, nice cut in olive. Zu keneged zu. The lashon of the Mechaber was, we have two porches that are opposite each other. Zu keneged zu. Ritzayna loymar, the Chavetz Chaim says, what the Mechaber means to say over here is, Shezeh boileit midaraim litzafain. The Chavetz Chaim is giving us directions over here. He wants us to understand very clearly that we're talking about two porches that are across the street from each other. They're not in line with each other, going along the length of Rishos Harabim. So let's say, using the directions that the Chavetz Chaim is going to use over here, he is laying out the street so that, let's say this side of the street is north, and this side of the street is south. What he's telling me is, these two porches, you know how they go? They go, Zeh boilet midaraim litzafain. This porch is going from south to north. So you had a building over here on the south side of Rishus Harabim, and it has a porch that extends from south to north. And on this side, on the northern side of Rishus Harabim, you have a porch that extends from north to south. So they're across from each other. They're not lined up this way. In what I just did, if this is north, and this is south, so this is east and this is west. They're not in line with each other, east and west. They're across from each other, north and south. Now, it happens to be that this is based on a Machlokes Rishonim in the Sugi and Eruvin, but it's very critical for us to understand that that's what we're talking about. We're talking about across the Rishos Harabim, not in line, because according to most Rishonim, if we were talking about in line, we would wind up with different problems, and we don't want to deal with those problems over here in this Siman. So we're talking about across the street from each other. Says the Mishnah Berurah, nice cut and bays, Neser, you took a board and you made a bridge out of a board to bridge the gap from one porch to the other. Uba'inon sheyikva haneser b'masmerim, you have to fix this board in place using nails or screws or something. You have to fix it in place shelo yuchal litloi b'Shabbos, so that the bridge cannot be removed on Shabbos. This is the same halacha that we've seen already several times. Let's say we used a ladder to go to the top of a wall between two chatzeros. We said that the ladder has to be heavy because we have to know it's going to remain in place over Shabbos. Or we said if you made a platform at the base of a wall, you have to fix it in place. If you turned over a pail at the bottom of a wall to use to climb up to get to the wall, you have to cement it in place. So too over here, if you're going to use this board to be a bridge, to bridge the gap and make a Pesach between two porches, between two chatzeros, it has to be fixed in place. We have to know it's going to remain there for Shabbos. Says the Mishnah Berurah, nice cut and gimel, arehu kepesach. This bridge now acts as a doorway. Says the Chavetz Chaim Pirush, the explanation of this is, since you now have a doorway, val yedei zeh, by virtue of this doorway, muter letaltol b'shtei achatzeros mizelo zeh im yirtzu la'arev yachad. Now, if the two chatzeros, remember I told you, this house on one side of Rishos Harabim opens up onto one chatzer, this house on the other side of Rishos Harabim opens up onto another chatzer. Now, if they want to, because they have a doorway, they have that bridge is a doorway, now if they want to, they could join it to one combined Erev, and what will that allow them to do? That will allow them to be metaltal from one chatzer to the other chatzer. So they'll be able now to carry a keli sheshavas babayis in one chutzner over to the chutzner of the other chutzner, or vice versa, or from the house on this side to the house on that side, because now they're going to have one joint combined erev. The kevan sheyesh neser beinehem rochav arba, because since there is a board that is 4 tfachim wide, that's a bridge. Because now you've created a situation where it's very easy to go from the porch on one side over to the porch on the other side. You come out of the house on this side of the street, you go onto the porch, you go over the bridge, and you go onto this porch, and you go into that house. So you have very easy access from one chutzner to the other. Now the Mishnah Berurah makes an interesting point. If you remember, we said earlier, whenever you have two chatzeros, let's say you have chatzer A and chatzer B, and you have a wall that's 10 tefachim tall between the two chatzeros. So in order for them to combine in one joint erev, you need to have some kind of Pesach. You need to have some kind of opening between the two chatzeros. Now we said it doesn't really have to be a doorway. It could even be a chaloin. It could even be a window, as long as it's dalet al dalet. As long as you have a window that's 4 tvachim by 4 tvachim in the wall, that's considered access from one chatzar to the other. And now if they want, they could join in one combined eruv. However, we said that the halacha is that at least part of that chaloin has to be low down. At least part of that chaloin has to be down below 10 tfachim to the ground of the chutzner. If you would have a window that's daled al daled, but the whole window is above 10 tfachim, then that window doesn't give you access from one chutzner to the other, and they cannot join in a combined eruv. They're considered separate. But we said the halacha by a house is not that way. I always use the example of a semi-attached house. Let's say you have two semi-attached houses over here. One belongs to Ruvain, one belongs to Shimon, and there happens to be a window in the interior dividing wall between Ruvain's side and Shimon's side. There's a window. And now, because of that window, they want to make a joint combined eruv so that they should be able to hand the cholent from Ruvain's side of the house to Shimon's side of the house. So we said, in that case, even if the window is high up, even if the window is more than 10 tefachim high, you could still join in a combined eruv. Why? Why don't we say that the window has to be within 10 tefachim? So we said because the halacha is that a house is kimole. We view a house as if it's full. Because what do you do in a house? A house you fill up with furniture. Over here you put a break front, over here you put a table, over here you put a server, over here you put some chairs, over here you put a table. So we consider a house to be full. It's full of kalim. Therefore, so what? It's more than 10 tefachim tall. You'll stand on the couch and you'll hand the cholent up through the couch. It's 10 tefachim tall over there. You'll climb up on the server and you'll hand it through over there. So there's no chisaron of a height of 10 tefachim inside a house. Now the Mishnah Berurah makes the point over here. What are we saying over here? We're saying that if you have two porches, the porches are elevated. They're above the ground level of the Rishus HaRabim. And we're saying that if you make a bridge going from one porch to the other, that's an effective Pesach. Okay, says the Chavetz Chaim over here. We're in the middle of Gimel. By me, it's on the first wide line. The Kosav Prima Godim, the Chavetz Chaim says you should know that the Prima Godim writes, Dafka Kemoishe Tzier HaMechaber. This only works in the case of the Mechaber, Shahayu Agzusterois Boltois Min Ha'aliyos Sheyesh Behen Diurin. This only works over here because where is the Gzustera? The porch is coming off of a house. And inside the house, people live inside the house. The Kaimalon La'el B'Simin Shinayin Beis Sifhei. And we said earlier back in Shinayin Beis Sifhei, the Shnei Batim Yichaylim La'arev Derach Pesach Shebeneim, that two houses can make a joint combined eruv by virtue of the doorway or the opening or the window that's between them, even if that window or doorway is higher than 10 tfachim. And therefore it works over here too, even though these gzusterois, even though these two porches and the bridge that spans the gap are higher than 10 tfachim off of the ground level of the floor, right? Still, this works because you're dealing with a house. But if you would have a situation like this between two chatzeros, what would that situation be? Let's say you had a chutzner over here, and you had a chutzner over here, and you had a wall at the edge of this chutzner, and you had a wall at the edge of this chutzner, and those walls are 10 tefachim tall. And now you'll put a board going from the top of this wall to the top of this wall. So you made a bridge to span the gap between the two chatzeros. That's not going to be effective. You can't now join those two chatzeros in one joint combined eruv. Why? Why don't you say that if that board is 4 tefachim wide, it can make a bridge and it can make a Pesach between the two chatzeros? No, that doesn't work. Because over there you have a bridge between two chatzeros that's more than 10 tefachim high off the ground. That, we said, doesn't work. The Pesach or the opening has to be lower than 10 tefachim. But when you're dealing with a house, It could be higher than 10 tvachim. And over here, where you're talking about gzus terois, you're talking about a house. So imagine even in your mind, let's say, I know you're all thinking, well, what are we talking about over here? We're talking about a second-story porch. The patio doors on the second story to get out to the porch, they're not really 10 tvachim tall. They're at the ground level. They're at the floor level of the second story. But let's imagine in our mind, we're not talking about a second story where people live on the second story. Let's say we're talking about a house that has an attic, and the attic is used for some kind of storage. And how do they access the attic from the house? They access the attic from the house. There's a trapdoor in the floor of the attic, and there isn't even a ladder over there. So how are you getting up there? You're getting up through an opening in the ceiling from the first floor that's more than 10 tvachim tall. And certainly, if you go out now to the porch from that attic, that opening is more than 10 tvachim off of the ground level of the downstairs residence, which is really the living area. Still, it's okay, because we're talking about a house. And in a house, we don't care if the access point. Now, I'm using really technological language. I'm using access points. That's a networking term. We don't care if the Pesach that goes out to the other chutzner is more than 10 tefachim high off the ground, because we're dealing with a house. And in a house, it's not a problem. Okay, so now we could go back into the Mechaber. We're actually up to the words of the Ramah. The Ramah says, Hagah. So far we said, you have these two houses across the street from each other in Rosh Hashanah. Each one has a porch. You made a bridge going from one porch to the other, and that bridge is at least 4 tefachim wide. We said that bridge becomes a Pesach between the two sides, and now if they want, they could join into one combined Erev, because they have a Pesach going from one side to the other. The bridge is a Pesach. Now remember, it's if they want. They don't have to. They could make their own independent Erev, because if the bridge is only 4 tefachim wide, as long as it's not more than 10 amos wide, or as long as it's, we're going to see, as long as it's not nifratz b'miluai, if you would have, let's say the porch is 5 amos wide, let's say both porches are 5 amos long, and now you would hook up the two porches for the full 5 amos, that would be nifratz b'miluai. If it's nifratz b'miluai, now they're breached to each other. Now you can't separate them. Now they have to make one joint combined Erev. Now they cannot make two separate Eruvin. Or if it's, let's say the porches, let's say it's crazy, it's a big building, and you have the porches are 20 amos long, and you have a bridge that's 10 amos. Well, a bridge of 10 amos, if it's over 10 amos, that's no longer a Pesach, that's a breach. Now again, they would have to make one joint combined Erev. They wouldn't have the option of making two separate Eruvin. But the case of the Mechaber so far was that the bridge is 4 tefachim. If the bridge is 4 tefachim, it's a Pesach. So if it's a Pesach, if they want, they could join into a combined Erev. If they don't want to, they can make two separate Eruvin. That's what we're up to so far. Now says the Ramah on the second line, at least by me it's the second line. Hagah. Let's say the gap between the two porches is not 4 tefachim. Let's say the porches come very close to each other, and now there's only a 2 or a 3 tefach gap between the edge of each porch. If that gap is not 4 tefachim, now you don't need a bridge. Now without a bridge, you have a Pesach between the two porches, because you could very easily step from one to the other, so you don't even need the bridge. And now if you want to, you could join into one combined Erev. Now let's see what the Chavetz Chaim says here. Ois Katan Daled. If the distance between the edge of one porch and the edge of the other porch is not Daled Tfachim, Hainu, She'ein bein gzustera legzustera, you don't have between the two porches hefsik avir, a gap of airspace, rak pochus me'arba tfachim. All you have is a gap that's less than 4 tfachim. V'imkein yuchal of saya bekal mizel lozeh. So now it's very easy to step from one side to the other side. Now you don't even need a bridge. Says the Mishnah Berurah Katan Hey, Dina Hachi. The same halacha would apply Kimoi Beneser. It's the same halacha as if you have the bridge. You don't even need the bridge. What halacha is that? Sheyachaylan la'arev yakad kishayirtzu. That if they want, they could join into one combined Erev. because now the two porches make the Pesach, make the doorway from one side to the other side. You don't even need a bridge. So you have a doorway. The Gzusterois, the porches, are the doorway. V'im ratzu, but if they want, Ma'arvin Shnayim. If they want, each side can make their own Erev, because it's only a Pesach. It's not a breach, it's only a Pesach. And now the Mishnah Berurah is going to make the point that I just made to you. V'dafka, when is this true? That if they want to, each side can make their own independent Erev. And they don't have to make one joint combined Erev. V'dafka shesmichas hagzusteroi zu lezu, that's only true when the area where the two porches aren't close to each other, when that area lo yahaya ba'irich kal hakaisel is not for the full length of the porch. Now I know the Mishnah Berurah uses the words kal hakaisel, which literally means for the entire wall. The reason he says that, it seems to be, is because generally speaking, the way they built houses they made the porch for the full length of the house. So the length of the porch was the length of the wall of the house. But what the Mishnah Berurah is saying over here is, let's say you have the two porches extend out. For argument's sake, let's say the porch is 8 amos, let's use a different number. Let's use 15 amos. Let's say the porch is 15 amos long on each side of the street. On this side of the street, the porch is 15 amos long along the length of the Rishus Harabim. On this side of the street, the porch is 15 amos long along the length of Rishus Harabim. Now, we're dealing with a case over here where the porches come and they almost meet in the middle of the Rishus Harabim, where they're not separated from each other by 4 tvachim. They're only separated by each other from 3 tvachim. Now, what did the Ramah say? The Ramah said that that's just like having a bridge. You don't even need a bridge. It's very easy to step over. So this is going to make a Pesach from one side to the other. Since you have a Pesach from one side to the other, if they want, they could join in a combined Erev. But since it's only a Pesach, if they want, they can make 2 separate Eruvim. Says the Mishnah Berurah now, when is that true? That's only true if the space of the porch, where they are near each other, where the gap is less than 4 tvachim, is only for part of the porch. So the porch is not even. The two porches on the two sides are not even. They don't have a straight edge over the Rishus Harabim, so that they're separated one from the other for the same amount of space for the entire length of the porches. No, the porch has an area where it extends further out across the street than the rest of it. So you have a porch that's shaped like this. It comes out, and then it turns, and then it goes back, and then it goes straight again. So part of the porch, if you walk to that part of the porch, you're less than 4 tvachim away of the porch across the street. But if you walk further along the porch, over there the porch is shorter. And over there the gap is more than 4 tvachim to the other side of the street. So, in that case, where only 4 tvachim of the porch is within 4 tvachim of the porch across the street, then it's a Pesach. Let's see it in the words of the Mishnah Berurah. This is only true when the part of the porch that is within 4 tvachim of the porch across the street, is not for the entire length of the porch. Because if for the entire length of the porch it is less than 3 tvachim away from the porch across the street, or if the part of the porch that's less than 4 tvachim away from the porch across the street is longer than 10 amos, you see already where we're going over here. Now the two sides of the street would have to join in one combined Erev. Now they can't make 2 separate Eruvin. Very simple. I wonder if the Dirshu has a diagram that I could send you to. Yes, they actually do. I'm going to send you to Dirshu footnote number 10. Take a look at Dirshu footnote number 10. You see the top picture, you have that those porches they're misshapen. They're not straight. They go out at right angles. So in the top of the picture, the two porches from the two sides of the street extend further over the Rosh Hashanah. So over there, in that area, they are less than 4 tefachim separated from each other. But where the porches are further back to their respective sides of the street, over there they're separated by more than 4 tefachim. So what the Mishnah Berurah over here is saying is, you have to realize, when do we have the option of making 2 separate Eruvin or making 1 Eruv? That's when the part of the porch that is separated by less than 4 tefachim is either from 4 tefachim long to 10 amas long, or it's not the full length of the porch. If it would be the full length of the porch, then the 2 porches are nifratz b'miluai. They're completely breached one to the other, and I don't care if they're 10 amas. If they're completely breached one to the other, then they must make 1 joint combined Eruv. Or, even if it's not the entire porch, but if it's a section of the porch that's longer than 10 amas, then that's not a Pesach, that's a breach. And then they must join in 1 combined Eruv. A little complicated, but I think it's based on everything that we've seen until now. The rule is very, very, very simple. A Pesach is from 4 tefachim to 10 amas. More than 10 amas is not a Pesach, it's a breach. You have a breach, you have to make 1 Eruv. You can't split into 2 separate Eruvim. Another case where it's considered a breach, even if it's less than 10 amas, is if it's nifratz b'miluai. If it would be the whole porch, I don't care, even if it's 5 amas. If you have 2 5-amma porches, but for the full length of the porch, they're right next to each other, or they're less than 4 tefachim apart from each other, they're completely breached to each other. If they're completely breached to each other, then it's 1, and they have to make 1 Eruv. Says the Mechaber weiter. By me, it's on the 3rd line. So, the Mechaber had said, if you have this bridge, or they're close to each other, like the Ramah said, then, if they want, they could make 1 joint combined Eruv. But v'im ratzu, but if they want, kalachas mareves la'atzma, or they have the option to staying 2 separate Eruvin. Because like we said, it's only a Pesach. It's only a Pesach. You can make 2 separate Eruvin. Says the Mishnah Berurah is cotton vav. V'im ratzu kalachas, if they want, they can make a separate Eruv. Now again, the Mishnah Berurah is going to go through the same complications that we just did. The dafka, when is this true that if they want, they can make 2 separate Eruvin? So we're talking about the case now of the bridge. When is it true that if you have a bridge going from one porch to the other porch, if you want, you can make 2 separate Eruvin? The dafka kishe'ena neser machzik rak me'arbot tefachim ad eser amas. This is only true if the bridge is from 4 tefachim long to 10 amas long. But if you made a major overpass over here, going from one side of the street to the other side of the street, and your bridge is more than 10 amas long, then you're forced to make 1 Eruv with the other side. Because you have a breach to the other side, you can't make 2 separate Eruvin. Veda, and you should know, this whole concept that the 2 sides of the street should make 1 joint combined Eruv, hu rak lahayil, the only reason to make 1 joint combined Eruv over here is, sheyu yechalim kalechad letaltal al hagzustera, so that each house should be allowed to take a keli sheshavas babayis. Let's say they want to be mavis sedra outside on the porch. So they want to take a chair from inside the house, that's a keli sheshavas babayis, and they want to bring it out onto the porch. Well, wait a second, hold on. If you have one second, bear with me 1 second. Yeah, this is only talking about the case that he just mentioned. Bear with me 1 second. Give me 1 second over here. I just want to check something. Yeah, in this case that the Mishnah Berurah just said, where you have the 2 porches and you made a major bridge, your bridge is more than 10 amas long, so your mamish, the 2 porches are breached to each other. So we said in that case you have to make 1 joint combined Eruv. Now let's think about this for a second. What would happen if you didn't make 1 joint combined Eruv? So we said This house on this side of the street has its own chutzner. This house on this side of the street has its own chutzner. So, all right, there are two porches, and they're completely breached to each other. So they have to make one Erev. Let's say they didn't make one Erev. Okay, you know what? This house on this side of the street, if he made an Erev with the people of his chutzner over here, he could still take a chair from inside his house and take it out to his chutzner. That's no problem. What he can't do is, he can't take a chair from inside his house, a keli sheshavas pabayas, and take it out onto the porch. Why am I saying this? Very simple. You have the two porches that are totally breached to each other. But you know what you also have? You have a door that goes from the porch to the house. So the house is not breached to the porch. So if the house wants to make an Erev with the rest of its chutzner over here, and the people in the house want to take chairs from inside the house, and they want to take it out to the chutzner, that's not a problem. That's fine. But if they don't have an Erev with the other house across the street, what they can't do is, they can't take a chair from the house and take it out to the porch, because the porch is a combined chutzner between these two houses. So the two houses are aser on each other, the two porches are asering on each other. So to take a keli sheshavas babayis out onto the porch, that you can't do unless they make a combined Erev. And that's what the Mishnah Berurah is saying over here. He's saying, let me find the place again. V'da, in the middle of Eis Katan Vav, V'da, and you should know, the Mashet Tzrichim La'arev Yachad, this that they have to make one joint combined Erev, where the porches are completely breached to each other, because the bridge is more than 10 amas long. Hurak Lahayel, it's only to help, Sheyu Yichaylim Kalechel L'Tautel Alexustera, so that they should be able to take a Keli Sheshavas Babayis out onto the porch. V'chein L'Chatzer Chaveroi, or to go from their house on this side of the street, to the other chutzner across the street, kelim sheshavsu babayis. If you wanted to take a chair from inside the house on this side of the street and take it over to the chutzner on the other side of the street for the Pirkei Avos, for that you're going to need one joint combined Erev. Aval become mokaim, but even without the joint combined Erev, afilu lo yerevu yachad, even if they didn't join in an Erev, yechaylim kol echad la'arev la'atzmei ha'chutzner and batav aliyah shaloi, each house could go ahead and make an Erev with their chutzner, and they could take stuff from the house out to their chutzner. That's not a problem. Or to use the aliyah, or to use the second story inside the house, that's not a problem. You don't need a joint Erev with the other side of the street for that. The Mechaber said that each side can make an Erev la'atzma, says the Mishnah Berurah is Katan Zayin la'atzma, and if they choose to make independent Eruvin, so again, you have the bridge, and the bridge is 4 tfachim to 10 amas long, so that's a Pesach between the two sides. So he said if they want, they could join in a combined Erev, or if they want, they could make two separate Eruvin. Says the Mishnah Berurah over here, they could make two separate Eruvin. In this case, if they do make a separate Erev, each side will be allowed to take a keli sheshavas babayis, and they could take it out to the porch, B'shetach gezustera hashayich loy. They could take it to their porch. So again, let's just fix in our mind the case. You have the two houses across the street from each other. You have the two porches. There's a bridge going between the two porches. The bridge is from 4 tfachim to 10 amas. So it has a din of a Pesach. We said if they want, they could join into a combined Erev because they have a Pesach. If they don't want, they could make two separate Eruvin. So let's say they made two separate Eruvin. What are they allowed to do now? They're allowed to take a keli sheshavas babayis, and they can take it out onto the porch, because the two porches don't aser on each other. They have a Pesach one to the other, but they don't have a breach, so they don't aser on each other. So you could take a keli sheshavas babayis, and you could bring it out to the porch. But here's where we're going to get a little complicated. You can't take the chair onto the whole porch. You could take the chair onto part of the porch. Now let's see what the Mishnah Berurah says here. Which part of the porch could you use, and which part can't you use? Says the Mishnah Berurah, in this case, each side could take a chair that was shavas babayis, and they could take it b'shetach gezustera hashayich loy onto their porch, onto the porch that belongs to them. However, Ala shetach shekeneged haneser, but the part of the porch that's in line with the bridge going to the other side, that's the way the Mishnah Berurah learns. Amnam ala shetach shekeneged haneser, the part of the porch that's lined up with the bridge. V'gam al haneser gufa, and also on the bridge itself, mistabra da aser. Over there it makes sense that neither side is allowed to take a keli sheshavas babayis. So yes, you could take a lawn chair out onto your porch, but you cannot take the lawn chair onto the part of the porch that's in line with the bridge, nor can you bring it onto the bridge itself. Because that section of the porch is breached to the area across the street. That's also to you. You're not allowed to take the chair from the house across the street because you didn't make an error with them. So you can't take it to go across the bridge. And the part of your porch that is in line with the bridge is completely breached to the bridge. So you can't bring the lawn chair to that part of the porch, nor can you bring it onto the bridge. That's the way the Chavetz Chaim learns. If you want, you can take a look at Dirshu footnote number 10. They bring down the Chazon Ish, who takes issue with this and learns that you break up the porch in a different way. You can look at that footnote. Okay, all right, so now we're going to go back into the Mechaber. Until this point, we spoke about a case where the porches are directly opposite with each other. We said one is on the northern side of the street, one is on the southern side of the street, but they're directly opposite each other. That's what the Mechaber said in the beginning. On the second line, he said, Zu keneged zu. One is directly opposite the other. Now the Mechaber says, how about a little bit of a different case? Let's say the porches, they're across the street from each other the same way, but they're offset. So while one is on the northern side and one is on the southern side, but they're offset east to west. They're not lined up with each other. Says the Mechaber, Avalim hayu zu shaloi keneged zu. Let's say the two porches are not directly opposite each other. Sha'achas meshucha lemizrach, one is drawn to the east, v'achas lemariv, and one is drawn to the west. Einam yechaylim la'arev yachad. Now they cannot join in a combined erev by virtue of putting up a bridge. How would they put up a bridge? So, if they're across the street from each other, and one is drawn to the east and one is drawn to the west, so if they put a bridge, they're going to have to do it at an angle. They're going to do a bridge going on a diagonal from the corner of one bridge to the of one porch to the corner of the other porch. That is not effective. Says the Mishnah Berurah in Ois Cotton Ches. Meshucha lemizrach, Ritzayin Lamar, if it's drawn to the east, Ritzayin Lamar, what the Mechaber means to say is, Meshucha mimokayim chaverta, it is drawn away from the placement of its counterpart, of the other porch, Litzad Mizrach, to the eastern side. So they're offset from each other on an east-west basis. Einam Yechayim Larav Yachad, now they cannot join in a common erev by virtue of a bridge. Why? Explains the Chavetz Chaim, Shekesheyitnu aneser mizuluzu, because now when you put the bridge from one porch to the other porch, Yavai mikeren zavis shel zuluzu, it's going to go from the corner of one porch to the corner of the other porch. Upischa bekeren zavis loy avdi inchi, and people do not, generally speaking, make porches at corners. Now the truth is, this is a concept that we saw in other places. We saw earlier when we were learning the dinam of mechitzos, and we learned about a house, if part of the wall fell down, and you have a tzuras HaPesach, we said if you make it in the corner, we can't make a tzuras HaPesach on the corner of a building, because we don't make doorways in corners. That's not typical. Usually a doorway is made on a flat. It's not made at an angle on the corner. V'gam, and furthermore, says the Mishnah Berurah, Chavetz Chaim gives you another reason why this doesn't work. If you make a bridge going at an angle from one offset porch to another offset porch, and he brings this down from the Rabbeinu Yonasan and the Ritva, Lefi she'ein hagesher yoshar, because now you don't have a straight bridge. Ela ba'alachsain oimed. Rather, now the bridge is going at an angle, and therefore misyare adam la'avar boy. now it's much more intimidating to go across this bridge from one to the other. Why is that? Maybe, I'm just trying to picture in my mind, if I'm going from one porch over here, and I'm going straight across to the other porch over there, so that porch is in line with me. I see that porch, it's right directly across from me. I'm going over the bridge right across to another porch. When I go at an angle to an offset porch, when I walk on the bridge, and I'm in the middle of that bridge, I'm out in the middle of nowhere. On all sides of me, I got nothing. So that's maybe much more intimidating. Okay, says the Mechaber weiter. V'chein. By me, it's the second to last line in the Mechaber. V'chein, similarly. Im hoisa achas gevoya mechaverta. Let's say the two porches are directly opposite one each other, but the height is not the same. They're offset in the height. Lo choshev Pesach. A bridge is not going to be considered a Pesach if you have a bridge going one to the other. V'hani mili, says the Mechaber, when do these rules apply? That if they're offset from each other, either east to west or in the height, that a bridge is not effective. V'hani mili kishem meruchaka izu mizu shloisha tvachim. That's when the offset is at least 3 tvachim. Avalim heim toish shloisha zu lazu. But if they're within 3 tvachim of each other, bein berichuk, whether in the east-west distance, bein begoiva, whether in the vertical, chashiv shaper kepesach, then a bridge is considered a Pesach. Says the Mishnah Berurah in Ois Cotton Yud, chashiv shaper, pirush devikilu aneser munach b'shaveh. When you're offset by less than 3 tvachim, then we consider as if it's straight. In other words, even if you're going up in height, but if the offset in the height is less than 3 tvachim, then we don't look at it as being an angled bridge that's going up. We look at it as being straight. Kepesach Yud Aleph Da Damasha Amru Bein Berichuk Bein Begoiva. When the Mechaber says that whether it's offset in distance or in height, if it's within 3 tvachim, you're okay. Hainu shemaruchuk zemizeh yoyser me'abot tvachim ba'avir shebein zu lezu. We're talking about a case where the two porches are separated from each other by more than 4 tvachim. Ela shezu gavaya mizu. But the problem that we have is that one is higher than the other. The pachas b'shloish tvachim, less than 3 tvachim. Azamrinan devikilu heim shneim zu keneged zu v'naisin neser mizu lezu. And you could put a bridge one from the other. In other words, what the Mishnah Berurah is saying over here is, what case are we talking about over here, where we're saying that if the offset is less than 3 tvachim, you could use a bridge, and a bridge is going to be effective? He's talking about a case over here where the porches are separated by more than 4 tvachim, therefore you need a bridge, and the offset, let's say in height, is less than 3 tvachim. Now you can use a bridge, and you need a bridge because they're still separated by more than 4 tvachim. Or where they're offset from each other east to west, less than 3 tvachim, but they're separated by more than 4. So you still need the bridge because they're separated more than 4. And the east-west distance is not a problem because the east-west distance is less than 3. In those cases we say lavud. So we look at them as if they're still opposite each other, because even though they're offset, they're within 3 tvachim. So still, since they're separated by more than 4, you could still use a bridge to bridge the gap, because again, all the Mishnah Berurah is saying over here in this last piece is, when the Mechaber says that if the offset, whether the offset is east to west or the offset is in the height, the Mechaber said, as long as that offset is less than 3 tvachim, a bridge is effective. The Mishnah Berurah is coming to point out, understand that the gap the airspace between the porches is still 4 tfachim. That's why you need a bridge. If the gap between the porches is less than 4 tfachim, you don't need a bridge. What the Mechaber is saying is, if the porches are separated by more than 4 tfachim, so that you do need a bridge, but the offset is less than 3 tfachim, then we still consider the porches to be opposite each other, and you could still use a bridge. Or if in height, if the airspace gap is more than 4 tfachim, so you need a bridge, but the height gap is less than 3 tfachim, then we don't worry about the height gap, and you could still use a bridge to combine these into one, and if you want, you could join into a combined eruv. This concludes Siman Shinai Gimel. It concludes today's share. Me'ez Hashem, we will continue tomorrow with Shinai and Daled, and I will be in touch with you to figure out what we're doing, how we're going to do this over the summer. I'm still working on it. We'll be in touch. Thank you so much. I hope that these shiurim by remote work for you. I know it's not the same as if I'm sitting in the room. I can't see you. You can't see me. I can't take the questions. I love the questions. I enjoy the questions. But if this is what we can do right now, then we'll do what we can do. I miss you all, and be well. Bye.